we're going to live stream this presentation, and then we're going to do breakout conversation here at the mountain and also in the satellite sites as well. So tonight's session, we will be live tweeting throughout the seminar, and if you're a tweeter, feel free to join in. The hashtags are up there on the screen, and please feel free and please do follow us on social media as well. So today's session is looking at supporting social and emotional development, responsive relationships, and high quality environments. And we did something a little bit different this session. We did a Facebook Live session. Did anyone see that on Facebook? No. It was viewed by how many people, Chris? Yeah, it was close to 800 people that viewed it on Facebook Live featuring Julia, one of our presenters this evening. And we did that as a bit of a teaser just to kind of put some information out there on social and emotional development. So if you have not seen it yet, I encourage you to check it out on our Facebook page. All right. So today, I'm just going to do a bit of context setting for why we're here and why our center has hosted this session, and we'll be hosting others. And then it's going to be followed by a presentation from our two lovely presenters, Julia Dadds and Anne Briscombe, who are going to share their experiences and wisdom around social and emotional development. We're going to do a Q&A to our presenters, and then we'll have a facilitated discussion. We have some flip chart and markers, and we'll facilitate that discussion just so we can have a bit of conversation around what we've learned through our presenters. So just to set the context, so the reason why we created this seminar series, so this is the second of 4 seminars that we're planning through the Research Center. We had one on responsive feeding back in May or June, I'm forgetting, I think it was June, and I do see some familiar faces from that as well. So we had one session on responsive feeding, we have this on social and emotional development, the next one is on autism, right? We have Isabel Smith from the IWK Health Center who will be here sharing her wisdom on autism, and then the final one is on play. With our own Christine McLean here at Mount St. Vincent and Joan Turner. So we're really excited, so please look out for those additional sessions. And the reason why we started this, we held an event last November called Mobilizing Connections to build partnerships in early childhood. And this was really to try to start conversations across researchers, policymakers, and practitioners about the work that we're all doing collectively and how we can better work together. Through that session that we held here at the Mount, we heard from our participants that stories really mattered. And we wanted to carry that theme of stories through another opportunity for people to engage in conversation around key issues in early childhood using, again, a storyteller. And Anne is going to be a storyteller this evening. So that's essentially why we're here. We had a bit of internal funding from SSHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, to continue these conversations and to bring some of the food today for you all. So please feel free to help yourself as you need. So that's it from context setting. I'm going to introduce Julia, who's going to then introduce Anne. So Julia Dadds has more years of experience in early childhood than she wants to admit. She wrote that. She's worked in childcare as an educator, as an early interventionist, both in the classroom setting and through in-home programs, and spent about 10 years as a Head Start director in Indiana and Nebraska. And she came to us here in Nova Scotia in 2017 and served as interim director for the Halifax region with the Nova Scotia Early Childhood Intervention Services. And she's joined the pyramid work here in Nova Scotia as the coach team lead in the fall of 2018. So she has completed her PhD in curriculum studies at Indiana University, and she's taught many undergraduate classes, graduate classes, and pre-service teachers as well as nonprofit career management courses. She has 3 grown-up sons who now tower over her, and her favorite things are gardening, reading, and being a part of a new growth in a new initiative. And she's incredibly grateful to be here in Nova Scotia. So I'll pass it on to Julia. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Just make sure it's not upside down. Looks like it's right side. Yeah. There. Oh, then I'm going to have to hand this off to you. Okay, so I'm Julia, and this is Anne Briscombe. I function as a coach team lead, so I'm Anne's coach, And Anne goes into classrooms and coaches educators like you. And some of you have coaches. I've met a couple. And but most of you probably don't, because it's a mini project right now, getting the concepts established and figuring out how it works well in a classroom. Anne is, oh, there you go, right, right there. Okay. Don't use my theater voice, okay. Anne Briscombe is a coach with our project, and before this, she was an educator in early childhood for 19 years. She almost didn't tell you how many, but I outed her. She got her master's in education, in adult education 2 years ago here at Mount St. Vincent, and she grew up in Kenya and received her childcare education in England. I will tell you that Anne has specialties. She specializes in practical thinking and an incredibly positive attitude. So I'm so happy she's sharing this story, because I know it will be something that makes us all think and feel pretty hopeful about our work. You think so? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Okay. Right at your mouth.
So as Julia said, I'm a pyramid coach. I have 3 sites. I'm going to talk about one site in particular. The age group of the children I worked with were 3 to 4 year olds, and there's 3 teachers in the classroom. And the level of education based on Nova Scotia curriculum, Nova Scotia classification is entry level, level 1, and level 2. So my story was about dealing with the transition from one activity to another. So when I first came into the classroom, the transition wasn't as bad. There was music as cue for the transition for the children after snack, what they needed to do. So what they need to do before snack, so they have to tidy up, then they have to sit down, wash their hands, and then go sit down, and then get ready for snack. So the first thing I did is I observed the classroom to see what was different. I noticed it was taking them a long time to tidy up, because it was like, okay, the teachers have the time, give them 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes, can each tidy up, to put the music on, and the children have to tidy up. But I found out it was a little bit chaotic, because it shouldn't take that long to tidy up. If there's 2 ways of tidying up, the teachers have to help tidying up. You don't say, okay, you tidy up, you play with this, you play with this. You have to help tidy up with the children. So the first thing I did was I asked the teachers to give the children a verbal warning. And the verbal warning is giving them a 5 minutes before you tidy up. So one teacher asked me why. And I said, if you wake up in the morning, you came to work, and I said, okay, up, 2 minutes, up, go to the car and come to work, and you just woke up, you'd be like, I haven't had my coffee, I haven't had tea, I haven't brushed my face, I haven't brushed my teeth, I haven't washed my face. So if you as an adult go through those steps, the same thing as the children need to have that countdown before you rush to do activities. So we did the 5 minute warning, and the teacher was using their hands as a 5 minute warning. So they said, okay, you got 5 minutes, then you're going to tidy up. And I said, you don't just say 5 minutes and then 2 seconds later you're done. You have to count down the 5 literal 5 minutes, because children are visual learners. So you have 5 minutes. So you have 5 minutes, and then you have 4, 3, 2, 1, and then when you get to 0, you can put the music on. So the first time we did, they're like, oh my gosh, it's actually working. And the children who carry out one toy around the classroom, they're actually helping the other children tidy up. So the transition happened from 15 minutes, from 20 minutes to 15 minutes to now it goes up to 3 minutes for them to tidy up, because they always have that transition of 5 minutes. So one teacher would say 5 minutes, and then they look around and be like, okay, 5 minutes, and they keep them around their watch, and then 4 minutes, and it has worked really well. So their transition, even if I'm not there, I know it happens, because when I walk in, I can hear, okay, you have 5 minutes to tidy up. Now, one thing I noticed is not every child is the same. So you have to also understand the children who need the additional help. So 5 minutes may not be enough for them. So the teachers, tended to go to that child. There's a child who created the music, so he was pre-warned 5 minutes before everybody else, so he had 10 minutes to prepare. So they used to go and say, okay, watch, they would go and talk to the boy going down on his level and say to him, in 5 minutes time, we're going to tie it up. So that's mentally preparing him. We're going to put them in, so talking to him through the process of 5 minutes, we're going to finish playing with his toys, and then we're going to put the music on, and then we're going to tie it up. So that individualization of talking to that child made it less annoying for him when the music came on. Instantly, he wasn't covering his ears and he wasn't screaming. So that's the importance of the pyramid being transitioned in one section.
Good. So I wanna check in with you on that again. It was initially 20 minutes.
It was initially 20
And it went down to 3 minutes.
It went up to 3 minutes.
Oh, yes, thank you, Anne. And let's give her a hand because, boy, that was, she never gets applause. I'm going to click back and I'm going to, oh, how do I click back? Okay. There we go. So I want to, we throw around the word pyramid, and it's really not necessary for you to have a super thorough understanding. But what's cool about the pyramid, it just helps us conceptualize what we're working on. And here at the bottom is what we're talking about, the basics. And most of you are already in classrooms. So I'm not going to talk down to you, but I am going to tell stories, and I'm going to be really thorough on this, because what happens is if we don't have a brick in this bottom, the top doesn't hold. And what happens, I've seen it happen in my own rooms, I've seen it happen in the rooms with educators I've worked in, we get used to things. To us, it's obvious, right? The routine is obvious, how we do things is obvious, but we forget that it's not obvious to the children. And so we have to kind of bring ourselves back to square one and look at each of those bricks so that we don't leave any out. And I'm going to try to cover those bricks as thoroughly as possible today. If you pay attention to some of these bricks, some of them grow. They're like, chia pets or something, where if you do one thing, it actually supports another. So what Anne was saying is, by being very clear about the timing, they realized, oh, we have one child where the music doesn't work. So then that led them to individualize. So one thing tends to lead to another. So don't panic. You don't have to memorize all this. You will get the PowerPoint. That's why we have your email. But it's pretty basic stuff. And the reason we're going over it is because sometimes we forget, and sometimes we need to get a little re-inspired on it too. Okay. So I love this little graphic. I'm a grandma, so you will see some pictures of my grandchild because I have a release for those. The road is not the destination. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. And that's because I believe that stories have a lot of power. And I'm learning along with you. So when I got here, I moved here from the US, right? And this is not Indiana. Halifax is twisty, windy, uppy, downy, and so I had to learn my way around. I had lived in the same town for 25 years. I knew all the back alleys, all the places to park, for example. And I suddenly had to learn to find my way around an entirely new place. And it's 3 times as big as my hometown here. So it was new. And I started with knowing where 2 streets were, just 2. And I joked that I was friends with those 2 roads, because if I could find one of those 2 roads, I was good. I'll tell you right now, Bedford Highway was one, Lady Hammond was another. And I got to where I would know that I was okay, I'm cool, I'm on the road. But then I figured out which lane to be in, right? That's a big deal. You had that surprise turn off, or I'm in the turn off lane and all of a sudden I'm turning off onto a road I don't want to turn off onto. So when I mastered that, I was like, I'm kidding it. Then I figured out where the potholes were. You don't have any of those here. They can be pretty big, can't they? And to knowing the alternate routes. and their turn lanes. So this is the metaphor I'm going to share. This is going to guide us through. Julia's learning the roads is what we're doing here. So was my actual goal to learn the roads? No, it was to get to work. I needed to get to work and get home, but I did need to take the roads to get there. So the road isn't the destination, but it really does matter. It matters how well I get there. If Lady Hammond Drive and Gottingen and Bedford Highway were my friends, then the GPS was my best friend. I love Google Maps. It gave me step-by-step guidance. It showed me alternate routes. It even rerouted me if I took a wrong turn. What an amazing thing. I still use it a lot. This is a complicated city. So what is this about? What does it have to do with children? Well, as adults, we help guide children, don't we? We guide them through their terrain of early childhood. Sometimes it's literally an environment, physical environment. Sometimes it's an emotional environment. But the actual goal, of course, is that we want, okay, the curriculum title, capable, confident, and curious people. We really do. We want them to be able to learn through their lives, to be healthy and contributing. And their environment is composed of their living space, their schedules and routines, the people around them, the interactions they have with the people around them. And these are this is a definition from the people who developed the Pyramid Project, but I think it covers a lot of bases. And this is okay. So that's a pretty good summary of what's going to help children. Oops. Okay, here's what we want children to learn. The ability to communicate emotions in appropriate ways. We want to let children know what's appropriate and recognize when they do appropriate behavior. We want to provide examples of appropriate communication, offer varied emotional vocabulary so children can begin to use words more than their raw behavior. And we want to offer examples of appropriate ways to counter inappropriate ways. In other words, we want to tell them what to do, not correct them away from what we don't want them to do. And we can do this with babies. A lot of times we forget that, but children's receptive language, what they understand, is way ahead of what they can say back to us. Never underestimate the babies and the toddlers. They're amazing. So we know we want kids to be able to do this. What are some examples of how we can be a good GPS? How do we support the children? So an example is having clearly stated agreements with illustrations. Like we use our words and not our bodies when we need to say something. Okay? That's the kind of guidance that really helps children. It sounds so obvious, but the more we say that, the more they'll understand it and practice it, and they'll wind up saying it to each other. So we want them, healthy environments lead to these abilities. One of the ability is the capability to regulate their emotions, right? I don't know. We all think we regulate our emotions until we hit a wall, right? I mean, I don't regulate my emotions if somebody I love has gotten hurt. I don't regulate my emotions very well if I'm exhausted. I don't regulate my emotions very well if this is the 12th time I've picked that sock up from that very spot, right? So we want to let children know our goals and our outcomes and what we want to see. We're good friends, we're kind. We want to help start drawing the picture of what it is that we want to live together. We also want to offer illustrations of what regulation of emotion looks like. We want to offer tools for recognizing and addressing dysregulation. So I really need someone to point the way toward getting calm if I'm losing it, right? It really helps if someone sits next to me and says, I am so sorry that happened. What can I do? Much more than, what's wrong with you, right? I mean, it sounds so obvious when we put it in our own context, but we do sometimes do that with children. As a mom, I've run out of time. And when I run out of time, I tend to get sloppy. We want them to be able to solve common problems. I love this cartoon. It says low battery, 10% of battery remaining, dismiss. So yeah, our batteries run low, and kids' batteries run low in a much shorter cycle, right? They have so much they're processing all the time. Think of a computer that's processing a movie in the background and a PowerPoint in the foreground, and you're typing up a Word document and you have 20 tabs open. It's gonna poop out on us sooner rather than later. Share with them the tools that can interrupt the brewing conflict. Shut down some of those tabs, maybe. Do you really need to watch the movie right now? Offer easy steps to solve conflict and confusion and help them practice these through the day. Remember, for example, we ask our friends to share. If that isn't working, we look for a new toy or ask for help. We have to practice with them. This is brand spanking new. I have to be reminded, and it's old news to me, right? By addressing the bottleneck in their day, the educators in Anne's example showed how we can do things a little differently and see if that helps. It's a beautiful thing when we share with the children, okay, we're going to try something new. They learn then that you can problem solve together. Never be ashamed to say, I'm trying something out. We don't have all the answers. Environments help to build positive relationships with peers and adults in the site. I love the one friend you connect with on a different level than anyone else. Haven't you seen those friendships in your room where they're just so cute together and they're maybe a little naughty together because they are so in sync? We want to be the change we want to see. It's not good enough to just celebrate their friendships. We kind of need to be supportive and friendly with the people in our room or the people in our center. Now that can be a challenge, can't it? Right? Work relationships can be messy, but at least we need to be professional. And part of being professional is being supportive, right? So, for example, wow, I sure do appreciate you helping us to wash our hands, Miss Madeline. Or, hello, cook. Thank you for fixing us tasty food. It's that simple, right? It's that simple to offer an example of how we are good friends, how we are kind to each other. And it makes a difference. We want our environments to help with engagement in and persistence in challenging tasks. So we want to recognize and shore up competencies to stabilize them. And we want to invite children to stretch, to try the new, all the while reminding them of their already established competence. So when I'm driving around, I want to be able to know that I've been on this road before and now I can venture out a little bit, right? I feel confident enough. The biggest moment in learning to drive around was when I got from point A to point B. I found my way. And I went, oh my gosh, they're right next to each other. Point A and point B are right next to each other. It was such a great revelation. That's what kids do all the time when we show them a new way to do something or a stretch. So you carefully balanced the blocks that built that tall tower. Do you want to add one more? That's a scary moment, folks, isn't it? Because when the tower falls down, we're going to have a little resilience for that moment. So it might fall, but we can always build it again. We can help them remember that they've been through this before and they survived it, and it's going to be interesting. It's worth the price of the fallen tower to see if we can build some more. I know it sounds hokey, but it's exciting when we do it. So by making the steps between playtime and outdoor time clear, Anne's educator colleagues modeled how we create processes to move from one thing to another. And that seems obvious to the adults, but it's a new view for the children who have literally been carried through change until very recently. So now they're a partner in moving through change. So one of the things we've done is we've talked about a sort of theme where there's a mix of being clear about what is needed from the child and then letting the child explore finding some new challenges. And sometimes we reroute. Sometimes we just show the map. We're doing as good GPSs, good educators. What we're doing is helping the child find their own sweet spot between the new and the different and the safe and the familiar, between the challenge and feeling capable enough to engage with it. And some children need more to feel capable, right? Those are the children we have to come alongside and support. If the other children know the routine, you have that time to come alongside the child who needs extra. That's what's beautiful about having a routine that everybody knows, is then you are freed up to be the special help, and the other children start supporting each other. It's magical when you see it happen. And honestly, even toddlers will do this. They're so funny. They tend to do it with their bodies. They tend to take their friend's hand and pull them toward whatever, but it will help. So our environments, not only our relationships with the children and setting up the routines and helping them understand change, our environments themselves communicate messages to the children. Words communicate, but you all know, I don't know, how many of you have had an ECCRS done on your own, where they look at the environment, right? It's kind of a scary process, but the reason we look at that is because your room contains a bunch of messages to the child. How it's set up says things, right? When we make sure that all these other features are present, we communicate a message to the child as well. For example, as a traveler, if I see a bunch of orange cones, I know to slow down and be ready for change. We have to be able to do that for the children. We have to put up some orange cones, right? To let them know what's going on. Remember how frustrating it is when the turn lanes are not well marked? I think I screwed up today, in fact. Or, oh, this is Halifax, a construction zone pops out of nowhere. Oh my gosh, it doesn't even show on my GPS then. A lot of times it'll show those red lines. No, that roundabout with all the construction on it. Yeah, Arndale. It was my first roundabout here. Yeah. I figured I could go anywhere if I could do that roundabout, but right now, not so much. And I've traveled to some neighborhoods that I didn't really want to explore. So, that's a bad feeling. I was late to appointments, or I felt lost and maybe a little dumb. So what matters when we want to signal being supportive through our environment? Let's see. So safety, first and foremost. I used to tell my kids I had 3 jobs, and the first one wasn't to love them, it was to help keep them safe. And it's baseline, right? And sometimes I know when we had ECCRS done, sometimes I was a little bit cranky when they would point out, I don't know, safety hazards that I thought were a little nitpicky, but I get it. That's the baseline. You gotta keep kids safe. So what it says is that you are valued enough to keep whole and alive. You can explore here without a big risk of getting hurt, or a constant interruption of me saying, because, right? If we don't have a safe enough environment, we're constantly pulling the kids back. And you won't have to constantly defend yourself physically and emotionally. It all is connected for a child. Physical is emotional. Emotional becomes physical. Think about how tired you get when you're driving in a snowstorm, right? or down roadways with miles and miles of construction. That's what happens when we don't have a very safe environment. Cultural and individual attuning matters. So I remember the first time I took a wrong turn and didn't need the GPS to figure out how to move onwards. The sign was clear, the lanes were marked, and I could puzzle it out. And I felt like I can get around just like at home. I started to feel like I belonged here. The people who look like the child, we want pictures of children who look like the child. So we have brown skins and light skins, but we want to be able to have lots of imagery. So if you have children who are wearing certain clothing, you want to have some pictures of children wearing this clothing, preferably even pictures of those children, if you can swing it. You want to have some tastes and some smells that echo home to help the child. Familiar sights and sounds and tastes, they all say, you're welcome here. And they also say, I've got your back when you're struggling. I'm part of your home. I can understand where you're coming from. And if we challenge children when they feel energized, we're saying, I believe in you, you're capable, and you want to stretch that capability. So we have to be able to help the child feel safe, as well as recognize when they're ready to reach, when they're ready to. You've all seen that child, right? It's just bursting. They used to give one of my children a carpet to put under his foot because he was tapping. I loved that adaptation. What a wonderful school to do that. We also want consistency between the child's setting and expectations and those who care and have power. So here's my granddaughter laying flat out in a puddle, and her mommy told her to do that. She got her all dressed up in clothes. She didn't care if she got wet. And this kid, this is just one of a series. She was stomping in the puddle, she's jumping in the puddle, then she's laying in the puddle. And can you just see the joy there? Look at her face, she's blissed out, this kid. I don't know about you, but you know, I love to have a chance to just go with the flow, right? We don't want to set up a huge empty space in a room and wonder why children see it as a bowling alley. Right? If we set it up that way, we should go ahead and let it be a bowling alley then. Or if we don't want it to be a bowling alley or a racetrack, then we need to rearrange. I don't like it when a speed trap pulls me over and it's clearly at the bottom of a hill. I feel set up, right? I like those signs that flash my speed at me and warn me, hey, we said 50. We meant it. Much more helpful. Organization. Having toys and materials in reliable and well laid out spaces says you don't have to guess what to do. You can spend your energy on exploring rather than just finding materials. Now, this is a fun one. Most of you are experienced, so you've had this happen. You get about 3 months into a new class, bunch of kiddos, new group. You started out with everything really beautiful, and you started adding things because they got adventurous. And before you know it, it's pretty crowded. It's pretty cluttered. And honest to goodness, clearing some of that out, all of a sudden you'll see much more effective play, right? I'll never forget the Legos. And I just cleared everything out but the Legos at one point. And they were played with so much more effectively. Things were built that had never even been imagined because they zeroed in on them. It's okay to clear out materials and make it simple. You can cycle stuff through. You want a rich environment, but you don't want it to be overwhelming. I mean, it's like, what if stop signs and streets were rearranged every day? You need to have something reliable, and you need to be able to find it, right? Rich and varied. So Oh, does she want us to get simple or does she want us to be rich and varied? Both, right? And it's all about reading where they're at. Are you about 3 months in and we've played out about half of those toys and you see them just perfunctorily getting them out, dumping them, and not playing very deeply with them? That's a sign, you know? Observation is our friend because we will learn. We want to provide new and interesting materials, and we want to show kids what we're hoping they might explore about that toy. Now, they're bound to find new ways to play with it, but it's really good. We had these really heavy wooden blocks in one of the settings I was in. Those, you know, you can build maybe the Eiffel Tower or something with them. And we had to teach kiddos how not to misuse those and balance them poorly and then stand under them, right? Because somebody could really get a big goose egg on the top of their head from those heavy blocks. But were they worth it? Yes. Now, we hated picking them up, but they were really cool. And that's what I mean by showing the kids. We want to set them up for having a good experience. And it's not against the curriculum to help children understand what to do. It's perfectly fine to offer intentional guidance. We need to do that. You can channel, we're telling them you can channel your energy and exploration in innovative ways that are constructive versus random or destructive. If we don't help them see the constructive, they're going to figure out some other ways. And we have to kind of help keep them in the between the yellow lines, basically. Occasionally on the shoulder, maybe. Okay. So guidance and intentional learning supports matter. And I talked a little bit about that, but we really, you can see they're both working on this. That's the picture we want. We're working on it together. We don't want to do it for her, and we don't want to leave her dangling. It's a pretty hard thing to do to put your shoes on and buckle it at this size. And I love how the chair is right-sized for her. I couldn't have survived my entry into this new place without supportive people around me who told me, who knew their way around, and they told me what was cool, what was risky. There's some neighborhoods that look perfectly fine, but maybe I shouldn't go there and walk around and find out by myself as a woman. But also, I wanted to find the good places to eat and the services I need. I mean, I didn't even have healthcare. I didn't know where to find it or how to do it. Oh, it's cool. It's difficult, but it's great. And then lastly, scale, arrangement, and placement matters. This is my nephew. He has a congenital disability that makes him look odd. He is a smart whippersnapper. And here's his daddy with him in a right-sized place. That was just a really cool moment for the two of them. We want things to be at the child's level. We want them to be able to see the pictures. We want the schedule to be there for them. Yeah, if we want their parents to know what their schedule is, we can post another one if we really need to. But we could also point out the one for the kids, right? And it says, you belong here. You fit in, literally. And it also says, if you have a room set up in the right scale with opportunities of different kinds, it says you can be all these different ways. You can be quiet over here. You can be active over here. You can use your fingers in detailed ways over here, and you can use your whole body over here. A lot of us have limited space. Sometimes the whole body stuff has to happen outside or in a bigger room. So we give them guidance around that. We can do that. So these are the things, very basic bricks, and they tell the children, they literally tell the children these messages. Safety, cultural and individual tuning in, consistency, organization, rich and varied materials and environments, guidance around exploration, And all of this is scaled to fit the child. We should feel like we have to get down on the floor a lot. It's hard for me these days with my knees, but it's so worth it. The interaction is just delightful if I'm down there with the child. Just keep a table or a chair here. I can boost myself. Okay. So this all says I'm going to support you in learning to do these things. Remember these things from the beginning? Communicate emotions in appropriate ways, regulate emotions, solve common problems, build positive relationships, and engage and persist in challenging tasks. Can you see how we're kind of almost going up a ladder of complexity there? We start with just communicating our emotions. Then we're learning how to actually work with them. Then we're solving some problems that would tweak our emotions, right? The stuff that maybe pushes our buttons. And then we start to build the relationships around us because we're not all self-focused now. You can see this in the developmental arc with children as well. And then we can go forward and be really complicated in some of the things we do because we have peers who will play with us and we have supports around us. Now, I kind of like these pictures because this is Daddy comforting, but this is also Daddy playing. And I just love the unicorn and it's just, what a good daddy. He looks so ridiculous and he doesn't care. So we're communicating both across the physical environment and the psychological environment. And it's made real by us. It's on us to make all this real. We want our words and actions to say that we're going to support them in doing this stuff. So what are some of the top hints in getting there? Oh my gosh, I'm almost on time. It's a miracle. They're laughing because they know me. Top hints for doing this. We want to let children know what we want to see from them. Describe the vision. We're all playing together. Help them know what their world can look like. Be clear about what they can expect in their environment. Don't keep changing it around on them. If you're going to rearrange the whole room, it's great to bring them in on that if you can. Have them be a piece of that. I have seen moments where we just had to reboot the room, honestly. It was just like killing us. And sometimes you have to do that. I'll give you that. But it's nice if you can blend the kids into it. They'll be pretty good problem solvers. They might even know some things that you don't know. You want to celebrate what they're doing well. So if you're seeing a smooth and groovy moment over here in the corner, just whisper in someone's ear, you are playing so nice. What a good friend you're being. Wow, this table made a very cool design. Can I take a picture of it? That kind of recognition is so profound when you're brand new to recognition, right? It's for some children, it might be the first or second time they've had something that clearly stated to them that they're doing something wonderful. We want to provide the problem solving strategies when they struggle. That doesn't mean we tell them what to do. It means we ask them, what did you hope would happen here? What happened for real? Uh-oh, what do you think made things go wacky? What do you think might make it go differently next time? We have to help them step through it bit by bit. And honestly, that sounds like it might take a while, but it doesn't take as much time to constantly tell children what not to do, and what to do, and what not to do, and what to do, and what not. If they start to learn to solve the problems on their own, you get a whole bunch of efficiency from that. But they gotta learn a routine. And if you come up with some stock phrases like, what do we want to have happen here? What will help it happen? Something like that could become just a classroom mantra, site mantra. And it works. You want to lightly guide them into the new and through the difficult moments. So you don't want to tug them through. You want to point the way. You want to ask them, are you ready to make the next step? And encourage them to stretch their horizons. And we want to be the change we want to see. This is probably the hardest one for me, because I remember getting really, really tired and just living for that moment when I could get a coffee break or get in the car and head on home and collapse any number of things. But if we can find some ways to explore and have joy ourselves and to enjoy the people around us and to enjoy the children that we're playing with, it's so amazing. It's such a delight. And I tell people, what I really want for educators is that they remember and really revel in the reason why they started here. They started this because they loved kids and they enjoy them and they believe in them and they delight in them. They learn from them. Every one of you has that in you. And I see it when I go into classrooms and it's so gorgeous. We get bogged down sometimes. And so if we can remember some of these tricks, it helps us get back to the joy track and away from the grind track. And I wish I had some of these tricks back in the day. I didn't have them. They weren't this clear. I was just guessing around. So I included, and you'll get this PowerPoint, a couple of bonus slides. So these are just hints for difficult moments. And it's honest to goodness, I actually wish I had this so I could post it on my refrigerator when I was a mom, to tell you the truth. Because it's so easy, but it's not. So honest, if you have to put up some visuals for yourself, do it. Yeah, we want visuals up to the kids so they know what's coming next and maybe how you're supposed to put this toy back on the shelf, those kinds of things, those supports. But we need a supportive environment too. So if this is something that can help you, grab it and put it on your, inside your cabinet that you open all the time because the glue is in there or something. And then this is a really nice baseline of what we want for mental health. And I always say that it's mental health and it's brain health. We're growing brains like they're flowers. We have to give them the right water and the right sunshine and the right nutrients. And these are the nutrients that work really well. And we know this not because we guessed it. We know it because we tried them and we saw great things occur. So these are what they call research-based. And all research is trying stuff and seeing whether it works, right? This is research-based stuff that works. And then I really like this one because we're not doing anything here. We're just being. Sometimes that's all that's needed, is to just be with a child. I think, okay, we have a closing song. Thanks for joining us. Remember, if you'd like to receive your certificate, fill out the attendance sheet. There's going to be a survey for feedback, and there's going to be more seminars. I ended on time. Personal best. Thank you for listening to me. I know these are basics for you, but it's a refresher, right? Okay, questions? Questions for me or for Anne? I got to tell you though, the coaches that I work with are so nice. Yes.
This slide.
Yeah, let's get her pushed. I'll repeat it for you.
Slide where you said the adults, the individuals. We can't see what it said from back here.
Oh,
I was
okay.
just wondering if you could read a couple.
Sure. Yeah, it's detailed, you're right. Back button. Okay. She asked me to read a couple because these are really small. You're gonna probably.
The other slide?
Oh, back even further.
Like instead of saying don't cry.
Yeah, okay. Oops, whoops, oops. Back. Yeah, there we go. So, oh yeah, it's buried in the green. Instead of saying calm down, ask how can I help you? Instead of saying stop crying, try I can see this is hard for you, right? Instead of, I do this all the time still. When a child is distressed, I say, you're okay, you're okay. But that's not very fair, is it? The child isn't feeling okay. I did this just the other day when I visited you. They're laughing because they heard me say it. It's better to say, are you okay? And if they say no, you say, oh, I know that hurts. Show me where it hurts. And you know what? They got through it so much quicker when I did that. I tried out both. I remembered in the middle of working with, we were outside, so of course there were lots of babies, right? Instead of demanding quiet, ask, can you, or please use a softer voice. Because can you sometimes is a little bit like leaving the door open for, no, I can't. That's a 4-year-old, isn't it? Some ambitious 3-year-olds will do that too. Don't hit, please be gentle. So again, instead of saying not what not to do, let's offer them. And it's even better if you can say something like, please use gentle hands or keep your body gentle. Stop yelling, take a deep breath, and then tell me what happened. Don't get upset. It's okay to feel sad. Oh, that's so hard for me too. I want them to be okay. But you know what? I tried that the other day too. I said, I know you feel so sad. I know you're angry about that. They went through it so much quicker. It was really fun. Thank you for offering me that opportunity. And then that's enough. That's enough. How about just, do you need a hug? Do you need a moment? And then I'm over this. I'm here for you, right? And that's the hardest moment to be there for them. But think how important that moment is. It's life-changing. Okay, other questions?
I'm in a pre-primary class, and I'm in a school that had a lot of challenges in that a lot of our 4-year-olds do not speak English. And there's a lot of frustration because they don't speak English, and therefore they toss. And we are doing a lot of what you have up here and trying, to we have eliminated a lot of it. And when we set up provocations, we're stopping and thinking, what's this going to feel like in the back of my head? Yeah. Because they grow, their frustrations are much bigger at that point. So, is there anything we can offer on that? Because they just like it's frustration because they don't speak English and they don't speak English at home. When mom or dad come to pick them up, it's a whole different language.
Okay. So they're not able to speak English very well, and you heard it, okay. And they're using their bodies instead of their voices and their words. So think about language learning children at 1 and 2. What can we do to support them? What do we do with them? We use what they call motherese, baby talk. We boil it down to very 1-word, 2-word phrases. Then we elaborate, sometimes to nudge them along.
We've also been trying to use visuals.
Visuals, that was my next one.
Yeah, but even with that, it's still.
I don't use any words. We
Yeah.
have a translator on site, and I know this is not specific for the textbook. You know what it is they want to do, and it's just, it's charade.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes
It's
time.
hard to build that bond and that relationship
Oh,
because
absolutely.
there's no, I mean, I can say, what can I do for you or how can I help you? But if they don't understand what I'm asking.
Yes, and so if they don't understand her, what she's asking them, to share these phrases, for example, it's very difficult. So one of the things, you want to give them some power of communication. So baby signs are really, Yeah, just use the baby signs. So this is more, you know, use
Oh, like sign language.
exactly.
Because I have been doing the, you know, more eat.
More,
snack,
eat,
Yum.
help.
Yeah.
Think about the things you really need to have them be able to tell you. Help is one. That's a big one. If you get help is help.
All done.
All done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay, toilet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So help them get some basic words per se that use their bodies, because they're using their bodies, right? That's what we do when we don't have the words. Yeah.
I was just gonna say something, you can be later, private. Oh, I can speak loud enough, trust me.
No,
I was
you
gonna,
online. They don't hear you.
oh, okay, I was gonna say, with her thing, another thing too is maybe find out what language they speak, and you can get like key words in their language, maybe learn those. You've done that too?
yeah. We have a Google translator.
And that can help, but it's also probably
We're running around with an iPad.
you need to use something. You probably need to use something about use your words.
Yeah.
Use your words, not your body. Be and something along the line of gentle, like some sign.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the sign for gentle?
Gentle.
Yeah, gentle.
touch,
Yeah.
And that, but we have at least two that we can't even trust that, because I know we sort of stand back and we try to let them resolve their own conflicts, so we're trying to let them, you know, but we can't, because if they escalate, we have no way to de-escalate, and they literally throw things across the room.
You probably do need to come up with a de-escalation method. Like come up with a little ring that when we are hurting, here's how we bring it down. Here's the process, here's our problem solving process on this little ring. And it will bear fruit. You're early in your year here.
I know. Well, that's just the thing, right? And we're hoping that as they develop bonds with us,
You will.
as we get to know them better, then that will sort of calm down a
You'll
little.
get there.
But it's so funny because even today we're like, oh my gosh, and then when they found out I was coming here tonight, they're going, but we're doing all of these.
You
things.
are, and so it's really building the bridge between. Just think of them as baby language learners, and use some of those techniques you would use with a 2-year-old to like using the body to communicate appropriately. Yeah, the actions, and give them some good safe spaces for being frustrated, because they're so frustrated right now. I would have to.
Yeah.
I'm also with pre-primary, and the interesting thing that we've had to kind of evolve from is that loving that the environment is your third teacher, so to speak, and using it to your advantage. We're in the situation where everyone is given the same third teacher because you're all given the exact same inventory of material, and you're all given the exact same rectangular space that may or may not have windows, those sorts of things. So how can we help limit these emotions that arise from the giant bowling alleys, because you're so limited in the fire marshal and what you're allowed to do in the classroom? How can you adapt when you don't have the advantage of having the environment as your additional teacher?
So how do you adapt when the environment is almost set up for you in a way that encourages some dysregulation? And what I'd say is be sneaky. So think about big pillows, interrupting the big space with big pillows or big cushions. I'll tell you, Salvation Army is my best friend. You can find so much cool stuff. You can even find some school level, like somebody got rid of this because they were closing a daycare kind of. What's that? Dog beds. Yes, dog beds. Yes, they're wonderful. Exactly. And you can find dog beds at Salvation Army. But you can also find giant pillows for a song for $5. Honest to goodness. Or that can help a lot. Or also just putting your tables in arrangements that are supportive, but also breaking up the space a little bit. There are ways to do it where the fire marshal would be awfully mean to tell you no. And I have had mean fire marshals, I have. But, they get tired of it eventually.
I was wondering if you could speak about the pyramid model that you were discussing. To me, it seems brand new. Yes, and are there coaches in every learning environment, or is that going to be something down the road that we are going to have? Because it would be wonderful to have somebody come in, observe, and then have realistic conversations about what they see, what your challenges are, and come up with some problem-solving situations. So what's happening?
Oh, don't put me on the spot or anything. Okay, so it is a very tiny project right now. And we've just got a few sites in childcare that we've started in. And then this year, we're moving in some folks into the pre-primaries. So we are gonna, some pre-primaries, none of the new ones, because we want them to, at least get on their feet. But it is something where the vision is that it grows and it does become something where the sector itself can create and grow coaches amongst yourselves. You all have wonderful expertise. So if you get some exposure to this, you're going to be able to implement it. I'm dying to go everywhere, honest to goodness. But
we just ask the support site.
yes. Yeah, for
So we're
questions.
just gonna take 1 minute, because I know we can't see them, but we do have 2 support sites joining us from other parts of the province. So we want to take just a minute to ask each of them if they have any questions.
And I will say that the pyramid model, you can find it online, and tons of their material is up there for free. Just Google pyramid model, and it's
I just want to get back so I can click.
what's the title of
To
their
them.
main website? Just do you remember?
Challenging behaviors. And
Challengingbehaviors.org, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you Google NCPMI, it'll come up. Yeah, NCPMI will come up, and it has a whole whack of information, and you can look at different states in the United States as well, because it's the United States schools. And there's multiple states that have their own pyramid model sites as well. So the NCPMI, if you just Google that, it'll come up the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovation, and it has all the information that you will definitely get lost in. Yeah, and there's lots and lots and lots of resources. There's a resource library, so you can look up different things, and you can definitely use it on your own too. You don't have to have a coach come in. You can do it yourself. But like Julia said, it is going hopefully to be scaled up in the regulated childcare and the pre-primary, and that everybody in the sector will have access to it. Okay, so I'm just gonna switch. Sorry, there you go. Just so we have some time for our satellite sites. So first, maybe I'll say Angie at Marconi, can you unmute yourself and let us know if you guys have any questions? Can you hear me, Angie?
Hi there, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I don't think we have any questions right now.
No questions right now. Okay, thank you very much, Angie. You can mute again.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah at Team Spec, do you guys have any questions? I think you're still muted right now.
No questions here.
No questions there? Okay, thank you very much. One more. Okay, so we do still have a few more moments for questions here.
You did a beautiful job asking questions. Keep going. Other questions? But yeah, get online, do the research. There's great materials. Like I said, it's stuff you know, it just breaks it out in a really understandable way. And I will say that the basic part is what you should probably just focus on for the first 6 months in a room with children. And then if you're worried, if kids aren't catching on, if you have one that clearly just always winds up dysregulated, then you can go on up to the higher tiers where you're doing more targeted interventions, is what they call it. But again, it's positive behavior supports. It's positive behavior supports. It's not something we haven't heard of before. It's just framed very helpfully. So Okay, and I think we're ready for discussion now. So this is your chance to really chew on this together. I loved speaking to you. I hope you got something from it, but you will at least get something from talking to each other. I know that. Thanks a lot.